Hey everybody, welcome to our Tuesday live stream. I'm so excited to chat with you today. We are doing a live Q&A today. So if you haven't been here long, maybe you're new to the Savvies Club, let me tell you what we do. Well, first of all, hi, I'm Abby. I'm the founder of the Virtual Savvy, and we teach people how to become virtual assistants. Virtual assistants changed my life. I know that it's changing so many of y'all's lives too. And we love spreading the message. In fact, our mission is to train 100,000 virtual assistants so that virtual assistants can be a known industry. We want people to know that this is an option because we know how much freedom that it gives people. So that's who we are, what we do. And another thing that we do is that either myself or someone from our team goes live every single Tuesday just to chat with you guys, kind of a time just to hang out and to talk about virtual assistants. So most weeks we'll have a certain subject that we're talking about. We're going to dive deep into something to do with virtual assistants, whether it's, how to market, how to choose your rates, how to choose your services, whatever it may be. And then sometimes, like today, we will just do a live Q&A. So this is literally just a time for you guys to ask any questions. I'm here to hang out with you for an hour and just ask whatever questions you may have about building your business. So this is your chance to pick my brain. So we're going to dive right in. If you guys are new, and let me know, has anyone discovered the Virtual Savvy maybe in the last month? Let me know in the comments because I would love to know kind of where our new people are at. If that is you and you have not downloaded our virtual assistant checklist and starter kit yet, you definitely want to do that, okay? So you're going to want to go download this checklist. It's literally everything you need to do in order to start a virtual assistant business. So if you're like, I don't really know what this is all about. What I want to start my own at-home business, but I'm not exactly sure what I should do and in what order I should do it. This is a checklist for you, okay? So let's go ahead and do this. Let me see. I see we have some comments. Where are you guys all joining me from? I'm in Missouri, and it is really cold here. In the 30s, but feels like 12 degrees here, and I'm not feeling it because Thanksgiving, we were in Virginia and it was super warm, and I'm running to go back to 70-degree weather. So where are you guys joining me from? Let me know in the comments. So here's what we'll do. I am going to go ahead and answer the questions that were pre-submitted because we had a couple of questions that people put, in the comments ahead of time. And then if you guys have questions, drop them below. The easiest way for me to see your question is if you actually put a question mark in front of it. That way it kind of, stands out in all of the comments, and I'll scroll through and I'm just going to answer as many of these questions as I can live. Okay. So, awesome. Cool to see where everybody's from. Ooh, Italy, Germany, Tampa, India. I love it. So cool. All right, so the first question that got pre-submitted, which I think is a really great question, super relevant to a lot of you guys, is it possible to run a profitable VA business when you have zero experience managing or creating social media content for businesses? And if you guys have your answer in the comments, you can put it. My answer is an absolute yes. Oh my goodness, yes. In fact, when I started my business, I had no prior experience to doing anything social media. I mean, I had my own Facebook page and that was about it. And maybe an old MySpace somewhere. But other than that, I had no experience managing social media at all. And here's what's so cool about virtual assistants is, guys, you get to choose. You get to choose your services. In fact, on our blog, we have 101 services you can offer as a virtual assistant. You can go to thevirtualsavvy.com/blog. Right? And check out our blog. We have so much content on there, but one of them is there's 101 services that you can offer as a VA. And here's the thing, any one of those services you can start out with, right? It's not like, oh my gosh, there's 101 services. I need to know all of these. No. I don't know all of them that are on the list, right? But what you need to do is choose the things that you can do, right? What do you have experience in? Some of you guys are like, hey, the only thing on this list I know is bookkeeping. Well, virtual bookkeeping, it's a huge market right now. Hey, Abby, I can do customer service emails, and that's about it. I could, manage people's inboxes. Perfect, right? If you can write a good email, then customer service is one of those things that people are looking to outsource from the very beginning. So definitely, I know there are a lot of job opportunities that get posted in our group about managing social media. So that's a cool thing for you to also look at and be like, okay, well, the market is hot for learning social media right now. So it might be worth it as you're offering your general VA services. If you're interested in learning more, let me put this in here. If you go to savvyvault.com, maybe it is worth it to learn some new services, to learn Pinterest or Instagram, whatever you're seeing, if it's something you're interested in doing. And if so, check out Savvy Vault, right? We have courses on how to learn new skills. But I don't want you to get stuck feeling like you have to learn all the skills before you get started, because it's simply not true. Start with what you have and learn from there. Is there anybody, are there any more experienced VAs in the comments that have done this? Because I think it'd be cool for the newer people to hear from you guys. So go ahead and share your story in the comments. Like, yeah, I was totally like, I didn't know anything. I just started out as general admin and here's how it worked out for me. I'd love to hear from you guys. Okay, what is the best way to come up with how much you should charge in your VA business? And I think that this is a really, really great question. Again, we have a whole blog on how to, choose your rates as a virtual assistant over on our site. But there's really a couple questions that you need to ask yourself, right? The first thing is that you really have to take into consideration the fact that you will be an independent contractor, right? So what does that mean? It means that you're going to be paying for expenses for running your business, your hardware, your laptop, your internet, things like that. It also means that, hey, like it or not, taxes are going to be higher. And that's the fact. I personally recommend that people set aside 30% of all of the money that they make, or at least off of the profit, right? It's why it's a good idea to keep track of how much is coming in, how much is going out. What is your profit? My suggestion is to take 30% of that, chuck it in a business savings account, and then once tax time comes, you're able to have that money. If you don't need all of that, that's totally fine. Then you just get a little bonus once tax time comes. So that would be my recommendation. I also recommend paying quarterly taxes. That way you're just not surprised when the end of the year comes. Pay a little bit at a time. Again, keep track. And so that's a whole other discussion, but, just know that like, hey, as I'm choosing my rate, I need to take into consideration the fact that a decent chunk of this is going to be put aside for taxes, okay? And again, it's 30% of your profit, so make sure you're keeping track of all of your expenses. So that's number one, just kind of having that in mind. So if you're like, well, minimum wage here is $10 an hour, so I guess I'll charge $10 an hour. No, don't. Warning, don't do that, because what you need to take into consideration is the fact of all those expenses you're going to have and paying taxes and the fact that, hey, are you going to need healthcare, right? Like there's more things involved in running a business, so your rates need to reflect that, right? So then what you need to ask yourself is, how much do you need? And so this is what I love to do. Instead of saying like, well, I can do general admin and I guess I can't really charge more than $20 an hour for that, so I guess that's what my rate would be. No. Let's say what you need and let's work backwards. Let's come up with packages to get you to what you need, right? So let's say that you want to make $4,000 in a month. So, okay, you'll need to save about 30% back of that for taxes, right? So if you made $4,000 last month, then you would make, you'd save like $1,400 of that for taxes and have $2,600 remaining, right? So you could also work backwards in the sense that you're like, I need to take home $4,000, Abby. Okay, then you need to be making closer to like $5,700 in order to come up with that, okay? So just keep that in mind. Again, whenever you are coming up with your rate, how much do you actually need? Well, then how much time do you have? Can you commit 40 hours a week? Can you commit 30? Can you commit 10, right? So once you have that and you're like, okay, well, I need to make $4,000 a month and I have 10 hours a week, right? You have 40 hours a month. In order to do that, then you can say, all right, here's what my hourly rate should be based off of that, right? And so here's the thing. The cool thing is that you may look at that and say, oh man, my rate needs to be $50 an hour, and that may seem stressful to you, this is now what you know you need to work up to. So if you need to be making $50 an hour, guys, then let's get you learning some skills. You can start out with your general admin, maybe charge $30 an hour for your general admin skills. But as as you're growing, okay, I need to learn some higher level skills so that I can increase my rate, or I need to, develop some packages that are going to be more along the lines of $50 an hour. Okay. So that's my best advice. Again, we have a whole blog post on this over at the Virtual Savvy that you can read about, choosing your rate, but that's my best recommendation. All right, let's click over to the chat. Let's see what we've got going on over here. All right, I'm seeing some questions pop up. Okay. Lolita says, I have my first client, yay! But I do some personal work at her house. I have 2 outstanding invoices and she's asking me to come back. Could I deny going to her home until she settles the outstanding invoices? So, my first gut instinct is yes, right? Don't keep doing work if you haven't been paid. And more importantly, I would say, let's take a look at what your contract says. So I hope, Lolita, that you do have a contract with this woman. And it needs to say in there, that invoices are what your process is for unpaid invoices, right? So my recommendation is definitely, I think a lot of times it can be a little intimidating. I know I hate confrontation. Like I hate confrontation so much. Don't love it. And we get in our head that like this is going to be like this big confrontation event. Whereas, if you have her phone number, then maybe just get on a call and just be like, hey, it's probably just something that you missed, but I'm going to need you to pay those invoices before I come back over, and she may just be like, oh my gosh, yes, things have been so crazy, blah, 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 right? Which I think happens a lot. So I always give people the benefit of the doubt. But if she's like, yeah, I definitely don't keep working if you haven't been paid. Okay. Please, 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 please. Emily says that she's beginning to scale, going faster than I anticipated. Yay. That's so exciting. Go set ready. That's our motto here. Here we go. Deann says, I'm starting my business while I'm still working full time. What's the best way to manage my time and let clients know that my hours aren't normal and still seem professional? Oh my goodness. I love this question, Deann, because we get this a lot and I love seeing the hustle. So many of you guys are building your business while you're working full time. And in our Savvy System course, I have a whole lesson on building your business while working full time because it's a lot. And let's just say that, let's just put that out there. It is a lot to be working full time and building a business. And there's going to be this point where you're still working full time and your business is getting successful. So my first step, and I know you didn't even ask for this, but I just have to throw it out there for solidarity. So my first recommendation for you, not even client facing, just for you, is to manage your own expectations of yourself during this season, because I know how hard it can be to be building a business while you're working full time. And so this may be a season, especially as your business starts to grow and you're still working full time, that you have to let some other things go, and that's okay, right? So just give yourself some extra grace. If the house is a little extra messy, or if you're like, we're doing, 10-minute meals this whole month, like that's okay, it's all good. My house was a wreck while I was building my business. It's fine, right? Make enough money where you can get someone to come clean it. That's the goal, right? So I think that just manage your own expectations, okay? Again, unsolicited advice. You didn't ask for that, but I just had to throw it out there. So as far as managing your own time and especially how to communicate that with clients, here's the cool things, guys. Your clients don't need to know that you're working an extra job. That literally, they do not need to know that. I think that in the way that you speak with your clients and, in that first initial welcome meeting, we have an onboarding system right here at the Virtual Savvy where you go through, hey, here's how I work, right? Here's what you can expect out of me. And so you can tell them your normal working hours, but what I usually do instead of saying these are my working hours, because when you tell people your working hours, it kind of tells them you can reach me anytime between these hours. No, you can't, right? I'm not going to be in your beck and call all the time from these hours. I'm not a full-time employee. I'm a contractor. That means I get to work on my own terms. So I tell you how I'm going to work and when I'm going to be working on things, and I get to choose that. So I usually just say my response time is, right? And so, I have a 24-hour response time for emails. So if you email me, I will get to it within 24 hours. If there's something that's urgent, here's the procedure for something that's urgent, right? You can text me if you have, I never let people do that, but if I know some people do, but just know my response time is 24 hours, right? Or if you need something urgent, there's a rush fee. Okay, so I'm going to charge you a 25% surcharge for anything that has to be done in less than 48 hours or whatever notice you need to give people, right? So I think just setting those boundaries from the beginning, and let me tell you, it is so hard when you're first starting out and you're like, I have no other clients, right? Like, I don't have anybody else vying for my time. So but I feel like there's still it's a good practice to not necessarily just answer the phone every single time. Like, I'm here, whatever you need. I'm here. I'm available all the time. Available all the time. Again, please, please hear me out. I don't want you to be unavailable for your clients either. Don't ghost your clients. Don't not communicate. Please communicate with your client. Be in touch with them every day. It's one of the biggest complaints I hear from on the client side is people like, I hired a VA and I haven't heard from them in 4 days. And so just know that's a touchy area. But at the same time, if you're just every email they send, you send back in 30 seconds, when you have a full client load, that expectation is still going to be there and you're not going to be able to fulfill it anymore. So just be really aware in the beginning what you're saying, how you're saying you're going to communicate. I love the idea of sending a Friday email. Hey, it's Friday. Here are all the tasks I did this week. Here's kind of my wrap up. Here's everything that happened this week. Here's a report, whatever you want to say. And, by 10 a.m. on Monday, please let me know what the priorities are. Or even better, next week, here are my priorities. I'm telling you, here's what we need to work on next, right? As much as you can take charge, it's going to give them even more confidence on you, for you. Any advice on how to get more clients? Oh my gosh, yes. So much Nicole Molly. So much Nicole. In fact, I think that, I've taught an entire webinar, and in fact, I think I'm just going to give you the link to that. I have a whole webinar on how to get clients. It's become booked out. It's an hour-long webinar because we could totally spend this entire time talking about how to market your business. But I think just directing you to this training would be the best thing. I always tell people to start out with that friends and family email, okay? And that you can find in this webinar training. And it's basically just telling the people even though they're not going to be your clients, right? Your mom, your sister, your aunt, they might not be business owners, but the cool thing is that they know people who are business owners, right? And so just letting the word out, letting people know who are in your circle. So many people have gotten their first clients that way. And then there's multiple other methods, right? And so that's a little bit what we talk about in this training. Our full program, the Savvy system, which we're launching in January. It's coming up, guys. Actually, let me put that. If you guys are not aware, we have a wait list for our Savvy system course. And that is, we're launching it next month. And so my hair always gets crazy. We're launching it next month. And so if you went on the wait list for that, that's my full method for how to get clients. And there's just so many strategies. You can go LinkedIn, you could go Instagram, you can go all in with Facebook groups, right? You can do high-end client targeting. There's so many different ways to get clients. And our Savvy System course teaches you all of them, but our BBO training is a really, really great primer on how to get clients as well, okay? Awesome. Let's see here. My question, how much content do you recommend your subs have with clients, your subcontractors, like the word was like not coming to me. How much contact do you recommend your subcontractors have with clients, and how involved will I need to personally be to accomplish this? Okay, Emily, so cool, because Emily, I saw that you noted that you're growing really fast, and I love the fact that you're already thinking about subcontracting. Literally, once I got my first client, I was like, all right, let's start subcontracting, right? Because I knew I wanted to build something, and I wanted to give for me, I was a mom, I wanted to give other moms the opportunity to work too. So I just love that you're already thinking this way. So here's the way I did it, okay? I never actually got to the point where I was having my subcontractors work directly with my clients. First things first, you need to have a contract, okay? So you have a contract between you and your client, but then you also need a contract between you and your subcontractor. It's very, very important. And that's kind of the whole, like, I don't want my subcontractor to go work for my client. Good, have a contract in place so that doesn't happen, and just so expectations are really clear. So if you don't already have a contract, we have one in our store on the website at thevirtualsavvy.com, so you can check that out. So have a good contract in place is number one. Number two is defining how you actually will work. So what I always did is that my clients would give me the work, right? They'd give it to me. Then I would pass on all or some of that work to my subcontractors. They would do the work, would pass it back to me so I could check it, right, for accuracy, and then send it on. So I always acted as kind of the gatekeeper between my clients and my subcontractors. They really didn't even know that my subcontractors were working on the project because it had passed through me, right? Now, they were aware that I could subcontract because, again, in your contract, it needs to say that you can subcontract out some of this work, guys. Don't be sending information and projects to other people that your clients didn't give you permission to do. That permission is granted in your contract. See the importance of contracts here? So you want to have that outlined in your actual contract between you and your client. And then, that's the way that I always did it. Now, I only grew to 4 subcontractors. It was amazing, right? It was a awesome, profitable VA business. But I know some people go beyond that. And so I have a good friend who has 60 something subcontractors, right? And so she has all these teams. She's basically built an agency, and each one of those people has like a project manager, and the project managers talk to the clients, right? And so, this thing can get as big as you want it to go. And so that would be my recommendation. If you get people who are really, really, really good at working with you, maybe consider, instead of just saying, well, now you can just talk to the client directly, it's fine, you don't need me to be the middleman, maybe make them the middleman, right? Like promote them a little bit, pay them a little bit more so they can manage more people, and you can grow this thing even bigger. So yeah, that would be my recommendation. Now there is another model too, I want to throw this out there, where you just kind of connect people, where it's like, hey, this is an agency, and like I'm just going to connect you directly to your person that you'll be working with, which I think is okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it that way. Quality assurance is one of the big things that you need to make sure, right? Your name is stamped on this, so you want to make sure they're doing good work. So have a system for making sure they're doing good work if they're working directly with your client. And then have a good contract in place, obviously. And then also, have a system to make sure the work is getting done. And then just a way to be keeping track of all your subcontractors if that's the way that you want to go about it. Totally fine. You can do it that way too. Okay. Hi, Kenneth from Illinois. What kind of license is needed to be a virtual assistant? So the cool thing about virtual assistants is very similar to being a graphic designer or a web designer or whatever it may be. There's no special certification needed. If anyone tells you you have to be a certified VA, it's simply not true. You don't have to be certified or anything like that to become a virtual assistant. Now, as far as licensure goes, there may be specific requirements needed for you to become a VA, and that would be dependent on where you live. So what you need to do is you need to check your state and local requirements before you start your business, because they may say, hey, you need some special work from home license to run a business out of your house, right? Some places require that, some places don't. So that is a state and local regulation. That is not a federal regulation. So my biggest recommendation on how to find that out, because it can be a little convoluted, right, is to simply go to score.org. Let me pull it up here. All right, so Score is super cool. I'm gonna share my screen. So this is Score. Score is a free business service, and Score has these mentors. So you can go to, on their homepage, find your mentor, and you can enter in your zip code, right? And click get business advice. And so there may not be somebody exactly where you live, but what's neat, okay, so you'll have to fill out this whole request. But then what's going to happen is they're going to send you mentors in your area, and you can pick their brain about what different requirements are. And that's one of the best resources you can have. Now, Score is not going to tell you how to start a VA business. Most of the Score mentors I've interacted with, they cover all kinds of business, right? So they are much more familiar with like mom and pop shops and local businesses, not as much virtual businesses, but they will either know the regulations or be able to give you the exact contact information for who you need to contact in order to find out your state and local regulations, right? So very important. Do I need to have a certain kind of am I required, right? Like, it's a good idea to have insurance in your business, but am I required to have a certain kind of insurance? Am I required to have some kind of license to be able to run a business from my home? You can ask Score to give you the resources of who can tell you that information for your specific state, okay? Awesome. Let's see. Going through the questions. Diane's in Missouri. Yay! I am from Springfield, Diane. So happy to have another Missouri person in the crew. All right. I posted my business on LinkedIn. Do you think I should update the bio line, which currently occupies the information of my past EA experience? So there's a whole method that you can use for your LinkedIn. LinkedIn can be definitely a gold mine for clients for sure. So you want your profile to stand out, but to also just be really clear. So if you, I would say executive assistant, because that's what something people might be, searching for, but add something like quirky about your personality in there, and add maybe like an emoji or something. That way it definitely stands out. That would be my recommendation. Do you need to sign a different contract every time your duties change? It seems like it'd be annoying to your clients. Also, do you need a different contract depending on the job you're doing, social media versus blog editing? So no, all of that can be just included in the scope of work. And so I would leave room in your scope of work for the different types of tasks you would be doing, right? But make sure it also protects you that it doesn't go into scope creep, right? So if you agreed to do XYZ and they're asking you to do something that you should be paid way more for, make sure that your contract doesn't allow for that. So that's one of the reasons in our contract package that we have, you not only get a contract, but you get access to the lawyer who created the contract. So if you're like, I'm not sure, like this is what my client's wanting me to do, I want to make sure that it's in here, but that it's not so broad that they're just going to ask me to do anything all the time, you can directly email the lawyer that created the contract and said, hey, how do we phrase this so that it protects me well, right? Pretty amazing. Like a one-time payment gives you access to a lawyer to ask questions about your contract. It's kind of a killer deal. Yes and no, right? Like, do I need you don't need separate contracts for the different things you'll be doing, but you do need it to be in the scope of work at the very end of the contract, and leave that broad enough but specific enough that it's like you don't have to change it every time. And again, you don't have to sign a new contract. You can just amend that portion too. Um, I love how close you are to KC. I know we come to KC. Oh my gosh, you guys, I miss live events so bad. We used to do savvy meetups, and every time I went to a new city, I would do a meetup. So we've done several meetups in KC, and I'm like dying to be able to do meetups again. I want them so bad, but our time will come. Our time will come when we can hang out as savvies once again. Um, if we are branching out into a higher niche market outside of our current client work, do you have any tips on marketing to higher clientele? I'm currently utilizing the personal contact, social media, etc. Yeah, so I think a big part of it kind of depends if your niche market is by service or industry. So you can niche by saying, hey, I'm now a Facebook ads manager. Or you can say, hey, I am now working only with wedding professionals. If you're niching by industry, aka wedding professionals, then go where those people are hanging out, right? And really, in the sense of just where are higher end clients hanging out in general, what are the services and the things that higher end business owners are using, right? I see job opportunities all the time in like the ClickFunnels Facebook group, right? Because a lot of people who invest in there are making good money. They have funnels, they have active businesses, right? Or I'll see job opportunities. I love doing high-end client targeting, which is basically our way of doing cold pitching, which is something that we teach in the Savvy system of reaching out to your dream clients, right? And so there's several different ways that you can kind of shift your marketing. It definitely it starts to become a go out and find those opportunities a little less than just kind of whatever comes my way. All right. Rachel says, transitioning away from general VA work into specialized services. I'm having trouble narrowing down my focus and determining what specialized services to offer. I've made a list of all the things I've liked done in the past and it hasn't helped. Okay, so you've done step one of the process, Rachel. So there's two more questions that you need to ask yourself after you've done that. So the services that you enjoy doing, awesome, or what you've done in the past. The next question is, what do you like? Like, of all those services you've done in the past, if you were doing those like all the time, is there any of them that you're like, oh my gosh, I would grow sick of this? So for instance, some services, proofreading, bookkeeping, there's not a whole lot that changes in those worlds, right? Those services pretty much stay the same. There's going to be little things that you need to be aware of, but there's not a whole lot that's going to change. Facebook ads changes all the freaking time, right? Pinterest management changes quite often too, like how the algorithm works. So it's some of it is like, do you want to be keeping up to date with all the latest like software and changes and things like that? So have that help determine which service. And then the last question, I think that this one is really, really important, something we forget about a lot, is like, which one's just going to make me the most money? I mean, let's be honest. If you enjoy all of them, right? That's why that one's first. Don't do something just for the money. You'll regret it. But if you like doing all those things, then look at your services and be like, well, just which one's the most scalable, right? Which one has the ability to become a systematized process that I can scale and keep growing and get, people paying more for, right? Something like website design is super scalable, right? There's people who charge $10,000, $20,000 for a website and they can systematize, they can outsource a lot of it to other people, the fulfillment. It's a super, super high-end service that can make a lot of money and be systematized. Whereas proofreading, it can be systematized and it can be a higher end service, but is it ever going to be, $20,000? Maybe if you are a proofreader only for people who were New York Times best-selling authors in the past, and this book is going to make them $1 million, then like maybe, but maybe not, right? So you would have to scale on not how much you can charge, but how wide your services can go, if that makes sense, like how many clients you can get at one time. So just which is the most scalable. That's and you can do a rating system and rate which you enjoy the most, 1 to 10, which is the most scalable, 1 to 10. What gets the highest score? Let that be your high-end service. Let's see. Oh, this is a good question. Where'd it go? Boo. I was scrolling and it went away. Okay. I am just gonna go with what I see because, oh, here it is. Okay, cool. Diane said, what niche was your first client and how did you get started? So I started out with that friends and family email, and it's interesting because the friends and family email, I sent it out and then like nothing happened. And I was like, cool. Nobody wants my services. And then like 2 or 3 months later, like leads started flooding in from that email. So don't be discouraged if it doesn't work right away. Just, do it and then move on. So I went to some live networking events. I was in the DC area and I went to local networking events, and which there's a lot of local networking events either still happening or now happening virtually. So just be aware, live networking is not dead. It just, a lot of it is virtual right now. But I went to an in-person live networking event, stood up, introduced myself, right, to everyone. And that is how I met my first contacts and got my first client. So my very first client was somebody who owned like this, not like a garden center. And she was having me do data entry of like all of their items, right? Then I had a massage therapist who, again, was having me like basically do data entry for her. And then I had an insurance agent who wanted me to do appointment setting phone calls. So he wanted me to call his current clients and set appointments for him to follow up with them. I quickly realized I hated doing appointment setting phone calls because I had a kid at home. I had 2 kids at home, and one of them was very small. And so I was like, this is really hard to be on the phone and have it be quiet in the background. So I took that service away, right? So that's how I first got started. I would like to know if I should file as an SS or an LLC. So basically like a sole proprietor, I guess, is maybe what you're asking. Also, should I file for my AN and SS or LLC at the same time, or doesn't matter? Okay, so here's how it goes. Ready? No matter what, if you're going to be a sole proprietor or an LLC, you want an EIN number. So everybody, just mark it down. It's on that virtual assistant checklist and starter kit. Everyone needs an EIN number to start working with clients. If you don't have an EIN number and they send you a W-2, then you're going to have to write down your social security number. You don't want to be giving your social security to nobody, okay? Don't give your social security number to people, ever, 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 ever. You use your EIN number instead. So get your EIN number. It's super easy to get. And so that's going to be the first thing that you do, no matter if you have an LLC or not, okay? So you can have an EIN number even if you're just a sole proprietor. So then you need to decide, do I want legal coverage? And so again, an LLC doesn't change anything with your taxes. You're still a pass-through entity, except for the fact that you can write off the amount that you paid to file your LLC. That's the only thing it does as far as like affecting your taxes. It doesn't affect your taxes. What becoming an LLC does is it protects you legally, okay? So what I recommend doing it if you can. When I first started out, I actually waited to start my LLC only because I was straight broke. Like I had no money. We were living in a basement apartment. Like, my husband had gotten a huge pay cut. We were just not making money. So I was like, yep, somebody wants to come after me. I have nothing. So go for it. Right. Which is maybe not the best outlook, but that's what I had at the time. And I literally just couldn't afford the LLC and it wasn't a requirement. So I didn't. So again, you have to check out your local state requirements to see if you need an LLC. But I would recommend, trying to get it as soon as possible. So as soon as I could afford it, I totally got it because it protects you legally. Okay. If somebody were to come after you, if someone were to sue you, they're not coming after your personal assets. It's just the business, right? So that's where an LLC protects you. And then there's another, when I see SS, I wasn't sure if you were saying sole proprietor or if you were thinking S Corp. So an S corporation is another, it's a filing status. And so that does affect your taxes. And that is something that you need to look into when you're making $10,000 or more is what I would normally tell people. Because it's a lot of paperwork, it's work, and it's more accounting to file as an S Corp, to file your taxes as an S corporation. So So like the Virtual Savvy is an LLC that files as an S Corp, and it saves us money. But it's more work. You have to file twos, taxes, things like that. So it has to be really worth it. So usually it becomes worth it when you're making about $10,000 a month. But again, you're still just an LLC. You're just filing your taxes as an S Corp. Okay? Hopefully that makes sense. All right. Way before I thought of becoming a full-time VA, I had done contract work for 2 clients in early childhood content creation and workshop creation and facilitation. Awesome experience. I charged $50 an hour. Consequently, I'm seriously considering charging $50 an hour as a starting rate VA. Am I way off here? No way you're not, right? I don't think so at all. So I think that this is really amazing. And the fact that you've already done work. So here's the thing, like, who's going to pay $50 an hour, right? It seems like you've already found people who will do that. So my recommendation, especially if that's something you enjoy, and guys, this just goes across the board when you're building your business, just do more of what works, right? And I think that this seems like a niche, right? Do you call yourself a virtual assistant, or do you call yourself, an early childhood facilitator? I don't know what like, I think that there's some positioning that you could definitely do to go immediately into high-end services instead of having to start with general VA work. And I would totally recommend doing that, because it sounds like you've got something and that you maybe have some connections, or maybe the people that you've worked with previously, would they hire you again? Do they have contacts of other people that may be interested in your services, right? Reach out to those people, say, hey, I'm looking to grow my business. I want to do this full time. So, can you send any leads my way? Guys, we have not because we ask not, right? So ask people for leads. Just ask. Okay. I never see anyone talking about using temp agencies like Kellie Services or job boards like Flexjobs as sources of 1099 job postings. So I think that it's one method for sure. We don't talk about it a lot. We talk a little bit more about like Upwork and Fiverr. Honestly, mainly because that's just what I had experience with. I applied for Flexjobs once and just didn't find anything. But we've talked about HireMyMom.com, Flexjobs, or not Flexjobs, Upwork. I used to work for Upwork. I was a contractor for Upwork for a while. Like I worked for the actual company Upwork, and there's a way to doing Upwork right. Okay. There's definitely a method to having success on Upwork. But yeah, I think that it's one method. My recommendation is to choose 2 to 3 ways that you're really going to go all in with marketing. Don't try all of them, right? Because you're going to be spreading yourself too thin. You're not going to be able to get any traction with any of the marketing methods. Say, I'm going to go all in with Instagram and HireMyMom.com. Okay, those are your 2 ways, and go all in and give them a month. Test them. Really see if you get leads. And if you're like, I'm just not feeling this one, okay, cool. Maybe you stop doing Instagram and you jump over to LinkedIn and you're like, I'm going to go all in with LinkedIn now, right? So that's my recommendation. Yeah. Let's see here. What's coming from the vault for December? Tell me all the secrets. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I don't actually know. Our team needs to say in the comments. Tell Deann what's coming in December. I should be able to look this up really quickly, but I just got back from Thanksgiving. I think I still have turkey brain, so I don't know off the top of my head. I should know that. Oh, this is a great question, and we could do a whole webinar on this. Alicia, how do I scale up? I'm worried about getting too much client work. I don't have enough time to service them. It's definitely a balancing game, right? So I think you have to decide, are you going to do high-end services, or are you going to start subcontracting? Hire subcontractors before you even need them. Start slowly giving them work. If you bring on a subcontractor, you don't have to agree to give them so much work. I'm going to give you 10 hours a week. You don't have to say that, right? So you can go ahead and bring and start training people slowly. Have some margin, bring on new people. Have margin, bring on new people, right? So I think that slow growth is sustainable growth. But it's crazy when we say slow growth, because slow growth could be that you add 2 new clients a month, right? Well, 2 new clients a month over the course of a year is 24 clients, which is a pretty freaking amazing client load, right? So like just know that what seems slow sometimes in our minds is actually still kind of quick. So just I would just go at the level that you know you can handle, because the worst thing happening is exactly what you said, where you can't handle client work that you currently have. So my question to you is, do you have margin now? If the answer is no, don't take on more clients. Get margin, then take more clients, and then ask yourself the question again, do I have margin now? No, get more margin, right? And there's ways that you can have systems for creating more margin too. So what is a system that you could implement with every new client that instantly gives you more margin, right? And a lot of that comes by systematizing your processes, making sure you have a repeatable process that you can subcontract out. So that would be my recommendation. Great question. All right. Oh, this is so cool. Joined this community 2 weeks ago. Thank you for job postings. They're giving me an idea of what clients are looking for. Yeah, we can learn a lot from those job ops. Even if you're not like qualified for necessarily what they're posting, you can still learn a lot from what people are looking for. Awesome. So many good questions. I know I may be missing some. So if I miss your question, one, I know my team is in the comments answering a lot of them. And then number two is, you can post in our VA Savvies group, and I know you'll get your question answered by our amazing community as well. Juanita says, how do you decide what your client capacity is? Such a good question. Honestly, for me, it's just easiest to break it down into hours. Even if you're selling packages, you should know how much a package takes you, right? So if you're selling a website, you should know it's going to take me 20 hours to complete this website. So if it takes me a month to do a website, that's 5 hours a week. So I can work 20 hours so I can have 4 website clients a month, right? So, but before I start subcontracting. So you always just have to be aware of your time and how much time things take you. At the same time, if you're doing hourly packages, right? So you sell a package of 20 hours to a client. It's really important that you're just keeping up with your clients, sending those Friday emails of, hey, you have a package of 20 hours and you've only used 2. Like next week, let's go ahead and make those up. Because what you don't want happening, or say, hey, here's what I'm going to work on to start chipping away at those hours, right? And just go ahead and take the initiative and start doing it. Because what you don't want is you want 4 clients who are paying you for 20 hours a month. So you have like a full-time job, right? And then none of them give you projects till the last week. No. You don't want that. So you want to be constantly like, hey, here's what we're working on. Here's the plan. Put yourself in the driver's seat, right? And it can be scary for sure to say, like, to switch from saying, what can I do for you? Hand things off to me. What can I take to going, here's how I work. Here's how this is going to go down. Here's what I think we should work on first. Hey, I noticed your inbox is a mess. I'm going to come in and I'm going to clean it up. Cool. Give me the thumbs up, right? Take as much mental load as you can off of them. And what it's going to do, it's scary, right? But it's going to position you as the expert. It's going to make them go, oh my gosh, this girl knows what she's talking about. She came in and she just revolutionized my life, right? And then they're going to talk about you to other people. Okay. Oh my gosh, some really good questions here. How do you know you're ready to start? I'm a bit scared. Sarah, oh my gosh. I hear you and I feel you. It's totally scary. It's scary to start a business. I would recognize what is it that you're actually scared of? Because there's something really, I think there's something really powerful with vocalizing it. With staring it straight at the face and going after it, right? Like, this is the thing that I'm scared of. So for me, I hate rejection and confrontation. I'm not worried about client work. I'm not worried about letting my clients down. I know I do good work. That's not my fear. And your fear may be different than mine. I totally fear rejection. I just do. I fear confrontation. I just do. So I think that putting it out there is one thing. And then for me, what's really helpful is journaling through it. I love to journal. I'm a big journaler, and just really dissecting, why do I really feel that way? And then something that helps me too is going to worst case scenario. Maybe this is a terrible tactic. I am a VA coach, not a psychologist. So if I mess up your life by this advice, then, I'm sorry. But just disclaimers all over the place. But like, it helps me so much to go to worst case scenario. Like my motto is kind of like, plan for the worst, or yeah, plan for the worst and hope for the best. And it's funny because I'm an optimist by nature. Like I'm like, everything's going to be fine. It's fine. But mentally, like what nobody knows is in the back of my head, I've already gone to the worst place and said, that's okay. Like literally, like example, when all the coronavirus stuff happened, it's back in March and we're like having to, quarantine our family and do the whole like shutdown thing. I looked at my husband and I was like, I think this is going to last 2 years. And he was like, what? And I was like, 2 years. I think we're gonna have to do this for 2 years. And he's like, no, that's crazy, blah, blah, blah. And now we're sitting here like 9 months later and I'm like, you might still be stressed because this is taking so long. And I'm like, nope, I knew it was going to take 2 years. So it's fine. Right? So like I pre-plan like the worst case scenario. And then I'm like, yeah, it's not so bad. Right. So sometimes actually going to that place, like what if somebody does reject you? What if somebody calls you a jerk and they hate you and you're the worst person ever because of your VA business? I don't know why they would say that, but just sometimes I go there and I'm like, well, that would really stink, but I would get over it, right? So sometimes just going to that, like, what is my actual fear, and like go there and then become okay with it. That helps me. Again, not a psychologist. I hope I didn't screw up your life just now. Okay, so Pamela says, my husband's been watching my freelance journey and he wants to transition from being my primarily cheerleader to doing freelance work. That's so fun. Do you have tips for boundary setting around spouse and kid life? I wasn't quite ready to scale with an agency mindset yet. Oh my gosh, so cool. So my husband and I work together. If you guys didn't know, my husband, Rob, started working for the Virtual Savvy in January. He's now a full-time employee of the business. And for us, it's so funny. Gosh, I feel like so much of it just depends on your own personal boundaries, right? So for us, we should do a live stream on this sometime about just how we work together, and you guys can meet Rob because he's amazing. But like, there's a couple like boundaries that we've put in place where like for right now, like he doesn't really report directly to me, and that is super helpful, right? And it might not work that way, but maybe, for you guys, it's no problem. You're like, he can work for me and neither of us have a problem with that, and that's totally fine. Or you may say like, man, I'm going to have him be in charge of blank. So that way that's like his responsibility and he has something to own. And that way you don't really have to like check in with it as much, right? Or again, you have to figure out what works for you. Some people are just like my husband and I, like the time together. Some people are like, I could not spend that much time with my spouse. The time together, like we love it. Like I could literally spend like 24 hours a day with my husband and never get sick of him because he's just really fun. And we like each other. We're best friends. So, but like for some people, that sounded terrible because like I get it, especially if you're an introvert. We're both extreme extroverts. So like being around each other all the time is awesome. If you're an extreme introvert, you might just be like, oh my gosh, I can't just be around any person for that much time, right? So know your boundaries, right? Maybe on these days, one of you goes and works from a coffee shop or you work in separate parts of the house, right? So the majority of the time I'm working here in this office and my husband has a little office set up in our bedroom and that's where he works from. So, and then we both like talking about work all the time. So we talk about work a lot. But I think just open line, it's like anything, right? I mean, pretty much now we're just going into marriage advice, but like pretty much all success in a marriage is pretty much just built on communication. Like just communicate well. And if something's not going well, just talk about it. And if you're like, I think this needs a change, just talk about it. Communication will pretty much solve like 99% of problems in marriages. Actual statistic, just made it up, but okay. Should you always have another client or more client work lined up for letting another client know that you're raising your rates? Awesome question, Jasmine. So I think that depends on you and your situation. So here's what I tell people about raising your rates. Should you raise your rates? Yes, I'm a huge fan of raising your rates. I'm a huge fan of raising your rates once you've been established with a client for at least 3 months, maybe even closer to 6, right? I don't love the idea of people, I'm not saying that you would do this, but like, you signed on with me as a VA, and it's 2 weeks later, and I'm like, surprise, my rates are going up. It's like, I just signed on with you 2 weeks ago, right? Like, that's kind of icky. So I say, 3 to 6 months before you raise rates. And then here's what you just have to know. Like it or not, you guys could have the best relationship. It could be whatever. This should not deter you. You should know that it's always a potential that you're going to lose a client when you raise your rates. That's just a fact. Like, you can be the most amazing person in the world, but if they can't afford that, they can't afford that, right? So just know when I raise my rates, I may lose this client. So that could mean that you have another client like lined up. It could mean that you have a savings, which is I recommend for everyone, right? Get 3 months of business expenses, including paying yourself, in a savings account for your business. That's separate from your tax money, right? It can be in the same account, but just make sure in your head it's separate. Have 3 months of business expenses. So you're like, okay, I may lose them, but I have a financial buffer, or I have a client buffer, right? Or you might just be at a position where you're like, well, if I lose this client, it's okay because I have another source of income. I have my full-time job, or I have a spouse who's working, or I have whatever, right? So it doesn't, like, the answer is not just automatically, yes, you need another client lined up. It's just, yes, you have to take into consideration that anytime you raise your rates, you may lose your client. Now, there's ways you can prevent that from happening, and we don't want that to happen, but it could, right? So you have to be prepared for it, right? Plan for the worst, hope for the best. I'm teaching you all to be pessimists. I'm actually an extreme optimist, so it's really funny. I am an optimist, but I'm a realist too. So I'm always just like, let's just be real. This could happen. What's the price on the course? You're talking about the Savvying System course. So we will be launching in January at $997. Okay. So if that's something, where'd my banners go? If you do want in on our Savvy System course, we're launching in January, and you can get on the wait list right there. Okay, we answered some of these questions. This is a great question. Okay. Francis, if you have a subcontractor, how do you make money with your client with that subcontractor? Okay. So this is a great question. Subcontractors get to choose their own rate, right? They're a contractor just like you. You choose your own rate, they choose their own rate. But you can set your budget. And that's what I recommend you do. You have to know going in that, hey, here's how much, I'm going to make, and here's how much I'm going to pay the subcontractor. So, if let's do a really, really simple example. $30 an hour, okay? And this is why you probably shouldn't, you can subcontract at $30 an hour, but I wouldn't recommend it. Here's why. $30 an hour is your rate. So I am going to pay a contractor $10 an hour. So $10 an hour, and then so your profit is 20. So then you need to save taxes on that 20%, right? Because that's profit. So then that's going to be what, like $6 an hour you're going to have to save back. So now you're down to $14 an hour that you're making, $10 an hour your subcontractor's making. Possible, right? But maybe not the most profitable. So for all the work that you're going to have to put into it, right? Because it does take work to train a subcontractor, to all the different things. So my recommendation is to get your rate or your package up to the point where you can afford to pay a subcontractor like 30% of whatever you're making, right? Again, that would be your budget. And maybe it's a little more, maybe it's a little less, kind of depending. But you don't want to have your services be $30 an hour, and then you're paying a subcontractor 25. Like you're just not going to make any money off of that, right? So maybe your rates are $60 an hour, and you can pay your subcontractor $20 an hour, and then your profit is 40. We're going to save back 30% of that 40, right? So again, you can start to see why it's good to have your rates be high enough that you can pay a subcontractor well, because you know, a subcontractor doesn't need to be making as much money as you. You're doing all the work of getting the clients, doing the double checking, all of that. So they're going to be making less, right? That's just part of it, of being a subcontractor. So yeah, take that into consideration. Another thing that's really helpful when talking about subcontractors in general is the idea that, guys, subcontractors, you can totally find them like inside of our VA Savvies group, whatever. You can go on Upwork, you can whatever. But I love finding people who don't even want to start their own businesses to be subcontractors. So for instance, like almost all of my subcontractors when I had just started my business were people who were like, I went to college with, who were now stay-at-home moms, and I knew their character, their work ethic, their talent. And I was like, hey, do you want to work from home and I'll pay you $12 an hour to do these things that I'll train you how to do? And they're like, on my own schedule? Yes, of course I do, right? So, you know, that would be my recommendation. And if those people don't want to start their own businesses, then like they're not going to have as much you're not going to have as much turnover, right? So check out like local college students or people that you're already friends with, stay-at-home moms, right? Like who are the people that maybe don't have any interest in starting their own business, but you know that you could train them well to be a subcontractor. All right. Oh my gosh, you guys have so many good questions and we're running out of time. Pamela says, please do a live stream on spouse and family life. That would be really, really fun. We should do that. We're actually coming up with our content calendar. So there is a thread in our Savvies group about what you want us to talk about, like what live streams do you want next year? Even right now, if you want to just like tell me in the comments, like, what do you want us to talk about next year, right? Which I think these questions are all a really good example, but we're coming up with our content calendar for the year. We're gonna decide, you know, what do we want to talk about? What blog posts do you guys want? What YouTube videos do you guys want? So if there's anything that you're like, oh, Abby, please talk about this. We need to hear more about XYZ, then definitely let me know in the comments. Or like I said, there's a big thread. You'll probably find it pretty easily in our Savvies group about, you know, just what we're going to talk about. Or you can email us hello@thevirtualsavvy.com and let us know what you want to hear more about because we're coming up with that content plan and it's going to be awesome. All right, guys, if you haven't already, make sure you download that checklist. It is super helpful. A lot of stuff we talked about today is already in that checklist. And I hope that you have an awesome rest of the day. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.